Hi everyone and welcome to episode 8 of Stacks of Questions. I'm here tonight with my regular team. So for the red team tonight we have Colin Lamont playing for the red team, I should say. For the blue team we've got Morag Shaw and I am going to be presenting. I've got a lovely guest for you tonight. He's going to be up in a second, but before that let's see what this week's challenge is. So we're going to be doing a chilli challenge today, okay? And they're going to be loosely created or kind of connected to the command words that you'll see in computing. So the easier question, maybe a 1 or 2 mark question, is going to be looking at state or name or any of the words that kind of fall into that sort of easy category. If you've never watched our Bloom's taxonomy episode before, please go back and have a look at it so you can see what some of these command words are. The second challenge is going to be a slightly more complex question. So perhaps looking at describe, explain, compare, and maybe some of the other more technical computing words that come along with that, so like write code or to design something. And then lastly, we're looking for a chilli challenge around and maybe an analyze question or an evaluate question, these ones that the kids typically get wrong, and trying to see if we can theme them all along one topic. But I thought this week, to make it a bit more complex, what we could do is we would spin the wheels to see if you get the same or different topics. Okay, so we'll go for the red team first. So this is your team, Colin. And you're going to be creating your chilli challenge on web. Fantastic. Because we've not had a lot of web ones, so that's good. Okay. Morag, shall we keep spinning yours till you don't get web, or are we going to go with web?
Yeah, go for something different. Yeah.
Something different. Okay, right. So Morag, for the blue team, you're going to be doing... Oh, no. You're going to be doing... computer systems. Is that better or worse? I'm not sure.
That's all good. All good.
Okay, so we'll put 10 minutes of the timer. You guys are going to go way into the background and come up with your chilli challenge to impress our guest in just a second. So let's see who we've got with us today. Okay, so joining us tonight, we've got Michelle Lang. She is a teacher of computing science at Duncanrig Secondary School in East Kilbride and has been teaching for 18 years. Welcome, Michelle. How are you tonight?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Thanks so much for joining us. Yeah, great. So we're going to look at tonight, so I think we're kind of at the stage now where most people have sort of done their assignment and we're going to be preparing for the examination. So we thought tonight we would ask you some questions on what you do and what your top tips are for helping kids with their assignment, with their exam preparation. So let's start off with, well, what unit do you teach, first of all? Do you teach databases or web as your optional unit?
I teach databases at the moment, but I have taught web in the past.
Okay, awesome. So at the moment then, with the kids that you have that you're teaching just now, what do you find the pupils find the hardest to revise for?
Software design development, pseudocode.
Do you find there's a particular reason for that, or?
I think usually it's understanding what's required of them in the question. So if you can break the question down quite often, like try and point out to them in a 6-mark question, they could almost guarantee get 2 quite easily. So not to look at the question as a whole, but try to break it up into different sections. They don't have to get 100%. So taking that kind of fear away, because I think some pupils just look at this massive big question and get put off immediately.
Yeah, they see that they get the white box syndrome, don't they? They see that big huge white box and think, I can't possibly write that amount of code. I'm not going to answer. I don't know about you as well, but I kind of find that when kids are trying to revise themselves or do some self-marking, they struggle a little bit because they don't get the code in the answer scheme. Do you know what I mean? It will say 1 mark for your fixed loop, and they might say, great, I've done that. But then when we look at it, we'll say, well, actually, that's not a fixed loop because you forgot maybe the end loop or you've not used the right syntax or something like that. So I think I totally agree with you.
Sometimes it combines 2 things as well.
Yeah.
So like initializing a variable, but also incrementing it. So they wouldn't necessarily know, looking at that was going to get them just the 1 mark.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so how do you prepare pupils for the kind of computer science exam style questions? Because they are a lot different to a lot of the kind of knowledge and understanding questions they get in a lot of other subjects.
So one of the things I've tried this year that I found quite successful is I tell them in class that their homework is going to be past paper questions in a particular area. So say it was record structures, I get them to do it all, because we don't have many past papers. So tell them at home they have to do all of the questions. Use Achieve, where we use Achieve quite a lot.
Yeah,
and that takes them to takes them to the correct questions, get them to revise that at home, and then when they come into class, we do a wee test, like a wee kind of fun test. And this year I've been using, I find it quite hard to make up the questions myself. So I've been asking AI to do that for me this year, and it's worked quite well. So we've got these extra questions that they wouldn't have had access to before. So they're going away, they're looking at marking scheme, they're trying to work it out, and it does seem to be building their confidence and answering the questions.
Yeah, and then have you identified specific sort of areas where you find they're maybe not doing well, and you focus on those ones? Because obviously maybe we won't have enough time to do all of them. So
yeah, so if the advanced higher at the moment, I think they find it hard. I think because object-oriented programming is new to them, and it's the terminology is new, they really do seem to find it hard to grasp that. So I do a lot of revision over making sure they know the definitions, they understand what a definition is of polymorphism, or what a class is, what an object is, and like do a lot of rigor in that kind of area, like using starters and homework questions, so they're going away and thinking about it by themselves.
Yeah, that's good. And do you find a lot of your kids buy into the homework? Because I know that can be a difficulty in some schools. Sometimes
I think they just see it as a task that they have to complete, so they don't put a lot of work into it. But I've offered, like, our school offers a wee bit of targeted supported study. So that's something that can be done during supported study to help the pupils and we only have the pupils that are maybe borderline come into supported study, so they could be helped with that. Quite often homework, I think the pupils that are doing really well put a lot of effort into it, and the ones that you want them to benefit from homework often aren't really focusing on that.
Yeah, and I suppose we'll see that reflected in the end results, right? So you've talked about a few already, but do you in particular have any sort of favourite techniques, or a favourite technique that you use with the pupils when they're preparing for the exam?
One of them is, sorry, I'm just looking, I have wee notes here.
That's okay.
Getting them to mark past papers. So getting them to mark other people's work with the marking scheme. A wee bit, I suppose, like we do that as markers when we're doing our markers meetings, don't we? So I think it's quite useful. And sometimes we get it wrong too. So it's good for them to see what the expectations are. I think showing course reports, they can see it's not just them that find these aspects of the syllabus difficult. It's across the country that they find these things difficult, and then they maybe, again, it helps to break down those barriers of it being an impossibly high task that they can't get over. Yeah. We've also got some ambassadors as well who we sometimes get to mentor in class, and they can be quite good at explaining, as I used to think this was really hard, but now I've got my higher, or so that's quite helpful as well.
That's good, that's nice. Okay, so we're going to finish up with our question of the week because we're getting a wee bit short on time. So what is your top tip to prepare for an exam for those pupils who are the ones that we're talking about earlier on, who maybe are not engaging with the homework, who are right on that boundary of, we want them to sit the National 5 exam, but we're a bit like, when they're going into it, hoping and praying they're going to get on. What's your top tip for those kind of kids?
I think like really the one that I've mentioned already is making sure to build confidence in these pseudocode questions, but also I suppose making sure they've got a good grounding in computer systems. They don't tend to struggle as much with databases or web. So I suppose making sure, like, maybe a lot of rigor in those areas to make sure that they're not losing marks there, and then trying to maximise number of marks that they can get from the more difficult, like the A marker question, because they won't be getting 100% of them, and they don't need to if you can tidy up everything else. Yeah. So I think that kind of rigor across the other topics is important.
Yeah, and that's actually, it's funny that you mentioned Achieve earlier on, and our both schools happen to use that, because what I actually like about Achieve is the fact that the kids can see quite easily the topics that come up again and again in every paper, so they can see the pattern. So actually, if they focus on the ones that are being asked all of the time and not just rarely, you're right, you're pinpicking the most likely places where they're going to gain. So it might not work, but it's certainly a technique for those of them who can maybe only retain, 60 or 70% of the course. You want them to be able to retain all of that. Absolutely. Well, fantastic. Let's go over and see how our team's getting on and if they're ready to share with us how they are managing. Okay, looks like they're both finished. So Colin, why don't you tell us what you've come up with for the red team?
So I wrote a wee bit of National 5 web code that should have a bit of interactivity in it. And then the kind of state question is just state the language used to add interactivity to this web page. So even if they can't actually look at the code, they can at least learn it's JavaScript. My describe question was describe how to fully test this piece of code. So because it's got that on mouse over and the on mouse out, you'd be looking for test going over it and test moving away from it to see if the change happens. And then the evaluation was evaluate the fitness for purpose of this code. Now, I hope that because it's got get element by ID, that code's not going to work because the paragraph doesn't actually have the ID, which is quite a subtle one, but you want that last question to be a bit of a tricky one, so nice. I threw that in. That was my chilli challenge.
Very good, very good. And we'll ignore the spelling mistakes, okay?
Is there just one spelling mistake? There's always at least one.
I'm just joking. Okay, so over to Morag's team. For the blue team, what have we got, Morag?
Well, I've got systems, so I went for higher systems. And I've chosen for the green paper, I've chosen state as my command word. And so I've got the fetch, I always say this too fast, fetch, execute, cycle, there you go, and state the missing 2 steps. So I've taken out 2. You would obviously, I would need to hide those. I've just not got around to doing that. Hide those 2 steps and leave, yeah. Okay, you get the idea though. You know what I'm trying to do. I've just forgotten to delete it. Okay, for my spicy, I've gone for explain. 2 different specifications, the clock speed and cores, which is faster, but explain why. Okay, so obviously a little bit more thought having to go into answering that, and a little bit more, I suppose, even calculations and things running at the side. And for my hot, I've gone for justify. So yeah, as best I could. Computer game runs slowly, and there's a spec there, the clock speed of 2.4 gigahertz, 4 megabytes of cache, and 2 cores. Select an upgrade, which isn't the hot part, but the hot part is and justify why. Which one do you think would help most on justify why? So there's more than one correct answer, but yeah, it's a justification. So I've gone for higher systems.
Very nice. So, Michelle, you've seen both of our teams' inputs. We've got National 5 Web versus Higher Computer Systems. Which one are you leaning towards as your favourite?
It's really difficult, isn't it? Because it's National 5 and higher, so it's quite a difficult comparison. I think maybe systems, because I think all the questions were more understandable. I think the hot one in about the JavaScript would be tricky.
Yeah, the super
maybe too
one.
Tricky. But I suppose if you like the fit for purpose, there maybe could be an explanation of what it should do, and then they could pull out of that it might not be fit for purpose. Or, but I think they're all good questions.
Yeah, they're both very good attempts. But you're going to go with the blue team for the win, is that right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Fantastic. Let's go over and have a little look at the scores on the doors. So that means that we have still got a winning team of the red team with a score of 5, but the blue team are hot on their tails with gaining another point this week with a score of 3. So only a few more episodes to try and skate this back and see if the blue team can still make the win. There's a chance it could happen. Tune in for episode 9 next week if you want to see what happens, and we'll see you all then. See you later, guys. Bye.